somewhere buried under a century of rust and silence. A blade that fed a family is waiting to be found again. I was clearing out an old property near my town when I spotted something buried under decades of debris. This cleaver, I estimated it was made sometime between 1910 and 1920.
Please note, this video is created using artificial intelligence tools for education purpose only. All information is based on real and verified research.
The blade is a full quarter-inch thick high carbon steel. The handle is completely destroyed. There are pits from decades of surface rust. But underneath all this, I can already see the bones of something great. 100 years ago, a cleaver like this would have been the most important tool in any working class kitchen. Every family meal, every Sunday roast started with a blade like this one. Before we start any restoration, I always document the tool completely. These before shots become our evidence of transformation. And honestly, they make the final reveal that much more satisfying. Step 1 is always a dry mechanical clean. I'm using a steel wire brush firm pressure, always working in one direction along the grain of the metal. This breaks the surface seal of the rust and lets our later treatments penetrate deeper. Here's where the chemistry gets interesting. White vinegar contains acetic acid around 5% concentration. That acid reacts with iron oxide, which is rust, and converts it into iron acetate, a water-soluble compound that simply washes away. This process is called chelation. I leave it submerged for a full 24 hours. Watch the liquid, it turns orange as the dissolved rust comes off the blade. By morning, what was a solid rust crust has become a soft, removable layer. Never leave high carbon steel and acid for more than 24 hours, or you'll start etching the good metal underneath. After the soak, a simple kitchen scrubbing pad removes everything the acid loosened. You can actually see the steel appearing beneath the rust gray, raw, alive. This is the first moment you start to believe the restoration is possible. For deep pitting, I bring in the angle grinder with an 80 grit flap disc. The sparks you're seeing are actually iron particles burning. This is where restoration becomes pure theater. But beyond the drama, I'm carefully removing only the minimum material, preserving the original geometry of this 100-year-old blade. Metalworking is a patient process of progressive refinement. I work through grits 80, 120, 220, then 400. Each stage removes the scratches left by the previous one. You can never skip grits. Think of it like teaching you can't learn calculus before you've learned algebra. The belt sander is doing the heavy lifting on the flat faces. I've switched to 180 grit. I want to see the finish come up evenly across the entire surface before I move to finer work. The metal is starting to sing. Old cleavers like this were typically ground with a single convex bevel, sometimes called a hamaguri or clamshell grind. This geometry is brilliant for heavy chopping because the convex shape guides the blade through dense material without binding. We're going to preserve this original geometry. At 600 grit wet sanding, something magical starts to happen. The surface begins to reflect light rather than scatter it. For the first time, you can see your own blurred reflection in steel that an hour ago was completely opaque with rust. The handle is completely destroyed, only the tang remains. I'm choosing between 3 hardwoods: American black walnut, hard maple, and Indian rosewood for a century-old working cleaver. I want something traditional and food safe. The walnut wins dark, dense, and beautiful. I'm rough, cutting the handle blank to match the original tang shape. The tang on this cleaver is a full-width hidden tang, meaning the entire metal extends through the handle, giving us maximum strength and balance. Period. Correct and structurally superior. I'm using a food safe 2-part marine epoxy. This will create a permanent waterproof bond between the steel tang and the walnut. In 100 years, whoever finds this cleaver will not be able to separate them. Handle shaping is deeply tactile work. You're not just making it look right, you're making it feel right. Every few minutes I pick it up and grip it the way a cook would. The shape has to disappear in your hand. When you stop noticing the handle, it's perfect. Linseed oil finishes are traditional and food safe. Watch what happens when the first coat hits the wood, the grain wakes up. Walnut goes from almost dull to this deep chocolatey, living color. I'll do 3 coats, letting each cure fully between applications. The buffing wheel with chromium oxide compound is the final step in the metal polishing. The surface is now at 2000 grit equivalent. The steel is so reflective that it's acting as a mirror. 100 years of rust gone, beneath it was this. I'm using a 1000 grit Japanese waterstone to set the primary bevel. The angle is consistent at 15 degrees. I use an angle guide for the first pass to make sure we're restoring the original geometry. After the primary bevel, I'll raise a micro bevel at 25 degrees for durability. The paper test. A properly sharpened blade should slice through a single sheet cleanly with zero resistance, no tearing, no dragging. Listen to that. That is what 100-year-old steel sounds like when you give it back its edge. From this to this, everything you see on the right was hiding under everything you saw on the left. Not replaced, not fake, restored. Every molecule of this blade is original 1910s high carbon steel. We just reminded it what it was supposed to be. And honestly, a blade that will outlive all of us by another 100 years. Back to its purpose. Back to what it was built for. A tool saved is a story continued. This cleaver doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs in a kitchen, doing what it was forged to do. If this restoration gave you even a fraction of the satisfaction it gave me to make, subscribe.